There was a man, 45 years old, standing in the middle of his 32nd floor office, looking out at the glittering city below. He had everything society said was desirable: a prestigious job, a loving family, a respected reputation. But when the laughter at the company party died down, when the congratulatory glances gradually faded away, he stood alone and asked himself, "Why do I feel so empty?" This seemingly small question was the first crack in the mask that had been painted on for years. Have you ever felt like that? Like you were living a life that wasn't really yours, like someone had written the script for you in advance, your parents, your teachers, your friends, society, and you were just trying to play the part. You wake up every morning, put on a smile, put on the right clothes, and have the right attitude. You go to work, meet people, behave as expected. You say what you should say, do what you should do, and then quietly return home at the end of the day. Everything seems fine, but there is something inside you that whispers, "Who am I?" That question is not weakness. It is not a sign of failure. On the contrary, it is the first sign of awakening. Carl Jung, the great psychoanalyst, once said that this deep sense of loss, doubt, and dissatisfaction is not accidental. It is a symptom of a rift in the soul, a warning that you are living far from your true self. And sadly, most people choose to ignore that voice. They reassure themselves with "everyone is like that. It's their duty. I have to take care of others," and continue to live according to what they have been taught, what is expected of them. They slowly die in safety and convention. They never really lived. They never really knew who they were. But you are different, because if you are watching this video, if you are hearing these words, and you feel something stirring inside, then perhaps you have begun to wake up. You have begun to question the obvious. And that is the first step on a journey of no return, the journey to yourself. I will not tell you that this journey is easy. It is not a path of roses or of empty inspirational quotes. It is a journey of facing the truth, the darkness, the parts of yourself that you have denied for so long. But only when you dare to look at it, dare to take off the mask that you have worn for so long, can you begin to truly live, to live as a free, whole, authentic person. In this video, we will walk step by step through what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming yourself, becoming a whole. And that journey begins by facing the mask you wear every day. It begins with the question, is your life really yours? If you are ready to dive into that question, to face and reveal yourself, then continue with me in the next part. Because what you are looking for is not out there, but waiting for you inside. As a child, you learned very early on that to be loved, you had to be an acceptable version of yourself. Maybe you were too hyperactive and were told you were too naughty, so you learned to shut up. Maybe you cried out of fear, and someone told you you were weak, so you learned to swallow your tears. Little by little, you began to create a more acceptable version of yourself, a mask. Carl Jung called this mask a persona, the social identity we build to fit into the world around us. It's the person you put on to be accepted, to be praised, to feel safe. There's nothing wrong with having a persona. In fact, without one, we would have a hard time surviving in a society full of rules. But the problem isn't having a mask, it's becoming that mask without even knowing it. Have you ever felt like you behave differently in groups? Have you ever smiled when you didn't feel like it? Have you ever said it's okay when you were falling apart inside? That's your persona at work. It learns to read situations, anticipate other people's reactions, and responds with a version of you that's tailored to the situation. At work, you may be calm and rational. At home, you become a good parent. When you're out socializing, you appear cheerful, approachable, and ready to listen. But after all those roles, when you lie alone in the middle of the night, a feeling of emptiness creeps in. You don't know who you really are anymore. Living too long in your persona makes us lose touch with our true selves. It's like an actor who has been playing a role for so long that he or she forgets who he or she was before he or she stepped on stage. And the tragedy is, most people don't realize this. They think they are living authentically, while every action, decision, and thought is shaped by the need to be accepted, loved, and safe. Think about it. How many times have you agreed to something you didn't believe in just because you were afraid of offending someone? How many times have you kept quiet when you should have spoken up? How many times have you laughed because you had to laugh? How much of what you call me is actually just a reaction to other people's expectations? Persona is not bad. It is a necessary part of interacting, of living with others. But when persona is your entire being, your soul begins to die. Because the mask may make you praised, but it cannot make you feel authentic. It may help you fit in, but it cannot satisfy you. It helps you survive in the outside world, but at the cost of withering in the inner world. Carl Jung warned, when you identify with your persona, you are no longer an individual, you become a role. And then every morning you wake up, wearing a costume you did not choose, reading a script you did not write, acting out a story that is not yours. You are further and further removed from your deepest and truest self. But what is even more heartbreaking is there are people who live their whole lives without ever knowing this. They wear masks until they die, never once seeing the real face behind them. They think they are strong, nice, successful, but never ask themselves, is that what I choose or what I am forced to be? And so life becomes a big stage. All of us exhausted actors trade freedom for security, authenticity for acceptance. So if the mask is not who you really are, then who are you? The answer lies on the other side of the mask. Beneath the roles, there is the repressed ego, the forgotten true self, what Jung called the shadow. And if you really want to live an authentic life, you will need to face it. Face the parts you have denied, hidden, pushed to the bottom of your soul. In the next part, we will go together into the deepest, most inaccessible part of yourself, the place that contains the truth you have tried to ignore all your life. That is where the real journey begins. There is a simple truth that few dare to face: the parts of yourself that you do not want to acknowledge are still alive in you, even stronger than ever. They do not disappear when you deny them. On the contrary, they hide, accumulate, and wait for an opportunity to rise, often in moments when you are not in control. Carl Jung called this part the shadow. It is not something evil, but the true but rejected part of you. The repressed emotions, the condemned thoughts, the desires that were once considered not allowed to exist, all reside in that shadow. The shadow forms very early. As a child, you learn that there are shoulds and should nots. If you get angry, you are scolded for being naughty. If you show weakness, you are considered cowardly. If you are too curious, you are considered rude. And then, in order to be loved, in order to be accepted, you start to hide those unworthy parts of yourself in a deep place where you never look back. But they don't disappear. The shadow doesn't die. It just changes places from conscious to unconscious. And from there it starts to control you silently, in your dreams, in your outbursts of anger, in your uncontrollable jealousy, in your shame that you don't understand where it came from. Have you ever been so angry that you later asked yourself, why did I react so strongly? Have you ever felt jealous but tried to deny it? I'm not that petty. Have you ever hated someone unreasonably, just because they showed you something you tried to hide? That's when the shadow comes out. It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask permission. It comes out when you're at your weakest, when you're off guard, when you're in a situation where your mask isn't strong enough to keep you safe. And then you are no longer in control of yourself. You are being controlled by the part of yourself that you have never dared to face. One of the most famous examples of the shadow is the Joker in the movie The Dark Knight. More than just a madman, the Joker is a reflection of society where everyone is wearing a mask, trying to be nice while denying the darkness inside. The Joker is not afraid of the dark side. He lives in it. And that is why people fear him. He does not pretend. But the shadow is not just darkness. Many parts of the shadow are not bad. You have just been taught that they should not be. Maybe you were once artistically gifted, but were told that art does not feed anyone, so you buried that passion. Maybe you were a sensitive child, but were told to be strong, and you learned to numb your emotions. What you have thrown away is the most alive and real part of you. And that is why Jung said, in the shadow there is the potential for true life. Because if you dare to face it, dare to step into the darkness of your soul, you will find the parts you have lost, the creativity, the spontaneity, the passion, the intuition, the fierceness needed to protect your personal boundaries. However, facing the shadow is not easy. It requires absolute honesty. It requires you to see yourself in your anger, in your jealousy, in your little lies, in your quiet selfishness, without judging. Because if you continue to push it away, it will come back, stronger, more destructive, more unexpected. A close example is the feeling of hating someone without knowing why. Sometimes what you hate about them is exactly what you have denied about yourself. They say it out loud, and you always suppress it. They live freely, and you are bound by responsibility. They dare to rebel, you always conform. The shadow often reflects on others, like a mirror showing you the part of yourself that you refuse to see. So how do you enter that shadow without letting it consume you? The answer lies in non-judgmental observation. You don't need to eliminate the shadow, you just need to see it. When you become aware of negative emotions, overreactions, internal conflicts, you begin to take back control. The shadow loses its power when it is brought into the light. A useful approach is to keep an emotions journal. Whenever you react strongly to something, ask, where is this reaction really coming from? Dig deeper. I feel hurt. About what? I am angry, but what am I really afraid of? I am jealous. Why do I feel I am lacking? That is how you approach the shadow, not to destroy, but to integrate. As Jung once said, enlightenment is not achieved by imagining light, but by clarifying darkness. When you begin to work with your shadow, you will find that something strange happens. Emotions that once confused you become understandable. Internal conflicts become less intense. Life choices become clearer. You understand yourself better, and as a result, forgive yourself more. And when you dare to embrace your shadow, you are no longer controlled by it. You no longer act out of old scripts. You begin to live with initiative, awareness, and honesty. And that opens the way to a deeper transformation, the union of your shadow and your true self, what Jung called the self. That is when you are no longer divided into good me and bad me, but become a whole, complete, complex, and free person. In the next section, we will enter the heart of the journey, where your truest self awaits you. It is not out there, it is within, and only revealed when you are brave enough to step past the masks and shadows. It is the self, the whole you, that you were before the world told you to be someone else. Deep inside every human being is a calling, not an external call, not from work, success, or anyone else, but a silent call from within you. An invitation, an inexplicable urge, urging you to turn back, look within and find your true self. Carl Jung called this journey individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself. Individuation is not about becoming a better version of yourself. It is not like the modern self-development goals: be stronger, be more positive, control your emotions. No, this journey has no destination, no final destination, no certificate of success, because it does not start from the desire to win, but from the desire to be authentic. Individuation is the process of deconstructing yourself, taking apart the things that are not you, inherited beliefs, social expectations, the masks you wear, the roles you have learned. Then, from that rubble, you begin to rebuild, consciously, honestly, without pretense. Imagine you are a traveler, a hero, entering the forest of your mind. The path seems clear at first. You think you know who you are, but the deeper you go, the more obscure it becomes. Familiar paths disappear. You encounter parts of yourself you never recognized: anger, fear of abandonment, longing for recognition, repressed childhood memories. You confront the shadow, the parts you have denied. You confront the persona, the mask you have worn for so long, and you begin to hear the voice of something deeper, the self, the whole being that has never been shaped, manipulated, or distorted by anyone. The self is not a separate part, but a union, where the persona is understood, the shadow is integrated, and you become fully yourself. But to get there, you have to go through the darkest passages. No one can enter the deep cave of the soul without facing the monster that awaits within. But it is there that you will find the treasure, the truth. Jung once said, "He who does not face the darkness within is ruled by it as by fate." The process of individuation is how you break that fate, from being a passive person in your own life to being a person who chooses and lives consciously. And the wonderful thing is, each step on this journey, although seemingly lonely, is not lonely. You are not just walking towards yourself, you are connecting with something more sacred. The self, according to Jung, is not just the personal ego, it is sacred. It is the deepest part of you, and at the same time connects you to something larger than yourself, to life, to beauty, to a depth of existence that words cannot express. Individuation is not a journey to become someone better, but a journey to let go of everything you are not. It is when you stop trying to please everyone, when you accept your own complexity, when you dare to say "this is me," without asking for permission, without proving it. And the magic happens. You begin to live with a deep sense of ease. You no longer have to strain to maintain a mask. You no longer have to fight to be loved, because you realize true love can only come when you are truly present. When you are no longer separate from yourself, you are no longer separate from the world. This journey is not linear. It does not go from A to B. It is a cycle, constantly colliding, discovering, breaking, rebuilding. Every time you face a difficult emotion, you are taking a step forward. Every time you stop to ask yourself, "Where did this feeling come from?" you are stepping deeper into awareness. Every time you dare to be true to yourself, even if it means rejection, you are moving closer to self. No one ever completes the process of individuation, but the change is obvious. You begin to see the world differently. You stop reacting unconsciously. You choose to live in a way that suits you, not a way that pleases others. And most importantly, you begin to listen, not to the world, but to your inner voice. It used to be forgotten, obscured, overlooked, but now it is your guide. True freedom comes not from mastering others, but from no longer being a slave to yourself, a slave to your illusions, to your assumptions, to what you think is right. And to be free, you need courage. Courage to look back, to accept, and to move on. Not to become someone else, but to become yourself, for the first time truly. In the next section, we'll delve into the invisible forces that influence this journey, the symbols, patterns, and archetypal images that Jung called archetypes. They not only shape your subconscious, but also influence how you love, how you choose a career, how you dream, and how you live. If you don't recognize them, they control you. But if you understand them, you can rewrite your own story. Have you ever wondered why certain stories, characters, and images move you so much without knowing why? A hero embarking on an adventurous journey, a rebel who dares to fight against the world, a kind mother who sacrifices everything for her child, an old hermit filled with wisdom. These images don't just appear in movies, books, or myths. They live in your mind. Carl Jung called these images archetypes. According to him, humans are not born as blank slates, but inherit a collective unconscious containing psychological patterns that are primitive, timeless, and cultural. This is the deepest part of the mind, where we share a common symbolic language without having to learn it. Archetypes are not fixed characters. They are behavioral patterns, forms of energy, roles that each person carries within themselves, in various forms. They are not outside of you. They work silently inside you, influencing how you see the world, choose a partner, react to conflict, and dream about the future. Take a look. Do you ever feel like you need to save others? That's the savior archetype. Do you always have to be strong, not allowing yourself to be weak? Maybe the warrior is taking center stage. Are you drawn to the mystical, intuitive, and deep? The wise one, or the magician, is at work. Do you live for others, but always feel left out? That could be the caregiver being abused. The problem isn't with the archetypes. They are an essential part of the mind. The problem is that when one archetype takes control, it distorts your entire identity. When you only live as the strong one, you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, and the price is that you are disconnected from the soft part that needs to be healed. When you live as the sacrificial one, you don't dare to set boundaries, and the price is that you lose yourself in order to be loved. Identifying your archetypes is an important step in the process of individuation. Otherwise, you will live like an actor without a script, controlled by invisible roles that you are not aware of. Interestingly, archetypes don't just live inside you. They are everywhere in popular culture, in movies, novels, ancient myths. It's no coincidence that millions of people around the world are drawn into stories like Harry Potter, Star Wars, The Matrix. Those movies are more than entertainment. They touch the deepest layers of the collective psyche. Harry Potter is the chosen one, destined to overcome fate. Neo in The Matrix is the way, the awakener, breaking through illusions to find the truth. Yoda is the image of ancient wisdom, the sage. Darth Vader is the shadow, reflecting the dark side that is denied. When you watch these stories, you don't just enjoy them, you empathize. because they resonate with your archetypes. That's why they become legends, because they tell your own story, but in a symbolic form. Understanding your archetypes helps you give yourself back the role. Instead of being stuck in a fixed role, you can learn to rotate roles depending on the situation. Sometimes you need to be the warrior, daring to say no, daring to protect boundaries. Sometimes you need to be the caregiver, knowing how to listen and give. Sometimes you need to be the rebel, daring to break the rules. And sometimes you just need to be the observer, awake and whole. Recognizing your archetypes also helps you understand your inner conflicts. Often you feel like you want two conflicting things. You want freedom, but you also fear being left behind. That's not because you're weak. It's because your two archetypes are pulling in two different directions. When you see this, you stop judging yourself, and you begin to understand, empathize, and reconcile with yourself. This is also why dreams are so important in Jungian psychoanalysis. In dreams, archetypes often appear in symbolic form: a teacher, a child, a monster, a dark room. These symbols are not meaningless. They are the mind's way of sending messages from the depths to the conscious level. Individuation cannot be complete without discovering your archetypes. Because to be yourself, you have to know who lives inside you and who is running the story. Only then can you become the narrator of your own story, not just a character in a scripted play. In the next section, we will face a hard truth. What happens if you refuse to take this journey? What if you continue to live in a mask, ignore the darkness, and be ruled by your unconscious archetypes? Jung made it very clear the price of denying yourself is not physical death, but spiritual death. And that, more than anything else, is terrifying. What happens if you never begin your journey of self-discovery? What happens if you continue to wear the persona mask, deny the shadow, and live out archetypes you don't even know about? The answer lies not in an academic book, but in the everyday experience of millions of people who are existing, but not truly living. Carl Jung warned that if you don't enter into the process of individuation, if you don't dare to be yourself, you will live a life governed by unconscious forces, and you will call it fate. You will find yourself repeating the same patterns over and over again, stuck in relationships that hurt you, pursuing goals that wear you down, and wondering, why is this happening? But you have no answer, because the real question is, who is in control of my life? You can go through life never knowing what you really want, because from a young age, you learn to want what others want for you. Good grades, a good school, a stable job, the ideal relationship, and you think that achieving them means happiness. But then, after all that, when you have everything you need, something inside you still feels missing. You feel empty. But you can't say it, because you don't know what it is. You turn to material things, to recognition, to busyness. But the more you try to fill it, the wider the void becomes. Because what you're missing isn't out there, it's inside you, buried under a mask, under the dust of oblivion. And the cost of denying yourself doesn't stop at emotions. It slowly eats away at your vitality. You get angry, but you don't know why. You lose interest in the things that used to make you happy. You feel exhausted, as if you are running on a wheel with no end. The more you run, the further away from yourself. Many people bring this feeling to the psychiatrist. I have everything, but why do I still feel miserable? I don't recognize myself anymore. I feel like an empty shell, playing the role of someone else. These words are not symptoms of a disease. They are signals of a split soul, the result of living too long in the persona, too far away from the shadow, too blind to the archetypal forces operating within. The scariest thing is not suffering. It is when you no longer feel anything, when you laugh but don't feel happy, when you cry but your tears have dried up, when you look in the mirror and don't know who you are. That is when you are no longer connected to your true self, to yourself. Many people fall into depression, not because life is too bad, but because they have lost the feeling of being themselves. They cannot be real, but they cannot retreat. They are suspended between two worlds, the world of pretense and the world of the suffocated soul. Others choose to deny. They brace themselves. They tell themselves, I am fine, that's life. As long as I have food and clothes, that's enough. But inside, dissatisfaction builds up until it turns into anger, blame, resentment, or turns inward into self-destruction, depression, a sense of meaninglessness. You can see it in loveless marriages that no one dares to leave, in talented people who always feel, I am a fake, in souls that have lost touch with themselves, and therefore with the world. But every journey has two paths. One is to continue living in the role. The other is to stop and start asking the question, who am I, if there is no one to tell me what I should be? To refuse individuation is to refuse the opportunity to live authentically. It is to accept a slow spiritual death, a death that no one sees, but that you feel clearly every day. But if you choose to turn back, choose to look deep inside, choose to embark on a journey of self-discovery, then you will not only save yourself, but also open up a new way of living, a life with depth, with awareness, with a connection between the head, the heart, and the soul. And the question now is no longer, what must I do to succeed, but what must I give up to become myself? In the final part, we will explore together, what is it like to live authentically? What will life be like when you no longer wear a mask, no longer fear the darkness within, no longer run away from the call of your true self? This is not the end. This is the door that opens to a new way of living, more authentic, free, and deeper than anything you have ever known. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to not have to play a role anymore? No more pretending to be strong when you're weak. No more smiling when you're falling apart inside. No more hiding your feelings, suppressing your thoughts, and compromising yourself just to fit into a world that never stops demanding. Authenticity isn't about doing something special. Authenticity is about being fully present with who you are, with both the light and the dark. It's about saying, I don't know when you don't know. It's about saying, I hurt when you're hurting. It's about stepping outside of other people's expectations to live your own life. Even if it means being lonely, even if it means being imperfect. When you enter the process of individuation, you don't become the best version of yourself. You become the truest version. And that's the only version that can bring you true peace. There's no need to prove anything. No more explaining. No more hiding. You will feel a deep sense of relief, lightness, because you are no longer trying to be someone else. Lightness, because you are no longer running away from yourself. Lightness, because you know that you do not need to be perfect to be worthy of living, loving, and being present in this world. And strangely enough, it is when you are authentic that you connect more deeply with others. It is no longer a connection from role to role, but a connection from soul to soul. Because authenticity has a quiet power, it frees not only you, but those around you. From now on, you will live not because of how you should live, but because you feel you are living right. Every choice comes from an inner understanding, no longer chasing after recognition. Every step has meaning, whether it is success, failure, or the most ordinary moments. And perhaps for the first time in many years, you will look in the mirror and see someone you know, someone who is imperfect, flawed, but honest, free, and alive. Someone you can trust, someone you have been searching for all this time. You. So I want to ask you, right now, not with your head, but with your heart, are you ready to be authentic? Not for the world, but for yourself. Not to be perfect, but to be yourself. If anything in this video has touched you, please share your feelings in the comments. Was there a part that made you stop, made you think, made you feel like a part of you was being called? And don't stop here. This journey has only just begun. In the next video, we will dive into the practice of shadow work, how to truly face and heal the parts of yourself that have been neglected. Because if you're ready to live authentically, you deserve the tools to do so. And I'm going to walk with you on that journey. See you in the next video. The journey to true self begins the moment you dare to turn inward, and that moment is now.